Today on Real Money is my guest, Bob DiCecco. Bob DiCecco was Tony Robbins CFO, and he left, as seen on TV, a multi-millionaire as their CFO. He found himself in a cycle of bankruptcy, homelessness, and addiction. And he shares his story and his journey of how he became a comeback kid in his own life. But at one point, he was chasing wealth, he was chasing money, he was chasing happiness, and that never got him what he wanted. Today on this episode, I hope that you hear and you learn something that you can bring into your own life about how money is not the answer, and that when we find ourselves, we find happiness. And I think that you'll learn that from Bob's story today. Join us. So we met 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? It was like 2020-ish, going through the pandemic. And you were, which I didn't know at the time, I didn't know anything about you at the time. You were going through a reset in life.
The beginning of the reset. Yeah.
It was the beginning of the reset, but it wasn't your first reset.
No, I had many resets. Some lasted longer than others. Some were shorter than others, but it was the final reset. And that's really the most important thing. Yeah, it was where do you begin?
Well, we're going to start there. We're going to start there because, so for my listener, our hope, Bob and I have had multiple conversations leading up to this conversation. Our hope is that you, the listener, learn something, can hear something, can know that you're not alone in whatever it is that you're going through. So, unattached outcome for me and Bob. Bob has agreed to be vulnerable, open, honest, transparent about his journey for you, the listener. Thank you for trusting me. You came to me about it and you were ready to share your story. And that was the case for the first time you told me what you had gone through. It's in the money space in particular, very vulnerable for you to share your story. And I acknowledge that and I honor that. And so where I do want to start is where we met.
Yeah.
You were working for an accounting firm as, I don't remember your title. What?
Don't hold that against me.
I was like, man, Bob the accountant, there's nothing more cliche than Bob the accountant.
And that's my learned behavior, my learned skill. It's not my core nature. I do it when I have to do it in order to, further my career in whatever way. But Bob the accountant I'm a ninja when it comes to accounting, but I'm much more an entrepreneur, creative than anything else.
It's a really interesting balance because not many people can do both.
Yeah, I call myself ambidextrous.
Yeah. So when we met, even 2020, so it's 2024, Valentine's Day, 2024.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. You were rebuilding from what I know, the lowest point in your life.
Practically death.
What does that mean for the listener?
For them, just to go to the punchline, I guess, first is I found myself for the first time ever, post-divorce, decided to have my college years. And that led to a lack of good decisions. And with far too much money and far too few of accountabilities and responsibilities, one poor decision after another led me to a substance for the first
What
time
substance?
in my life. It started with cocaine. I was always a social drinker, cigar smoker. I'd go to Napa Valley every year, wine tasting, but nothing was ever out of hand all my life. I was married my high school sweetheart, engaged at 18, married at 20, first child at 22. And, kind of worked real hard to come up because I didn't come from a silver spoon by any means. I came from a very poor family, a single mom, barely making ends meet. I had to take a second job in high school in order to buy food. We came from lack. And I lived with that. And a lot of my decisions over the years were from that mindset, unfortunately. Fear of economic insecurity and lack. So I was always trying to overcome that lack. And I thought money would do that. And money won't do that. Doesn't matter how much you have, I found out. I know some people with hundreds of millions of dollars that haven't figured it out yet and they're still struggling.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. When you left As Seen on TV, how much money did you have?
So I was making 7 figures. I was traveling the globe. My travel and entertainment budget for me alone in 2014 was $500,000. Just to give you an idea. There's not a country I haven't seen except Antarctica, continent-wise. And I had about, 157 million shares of stock valued anywhere from 10 to 50 cents a share. So do the math. I was running in the circles of, this is just a kid from Methuen, Massachusetts, where people grow up. Nobody goes to college. You become a plumber, electrician, tradesman. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's just what you do. And I escaped. And through perseverance, determination, hard work, a lot of sacrifice, I worked my way up little by little, 1 step forward, 3 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It wasn't easy. So to be running a public company, chairman of the board, at the age of 45 years old, traveling the globe, customers all over the world, had my own manufacturing facilities in Asia, lots of money. It was surreal. Felt kind of like Monopoly, to be honest with you. And, I was being groomed by a major hedge fund owner that had a $6 billion hedge fund to be worth a couple $100 million. But I was not mentally prepared for even what I had, let alone anymore. And so when I took that first line of cocaine in April of 2014, by the way, that wasn't the first bad decision. That was my last.
No, we're just starting with we're gonna talk about all of that.
Yeah.
But
that was the last bad decision that led me to the gates of hell, basically. It wasn't more than 18 months from that first party to complete and literal loss of, I gave away everything. It was taken from me, but I gave it away. And I mean, everything but the clothes on my back. I found myself homeless. And if you think it can't happen to you, or you think it can't happen to your loved one, I never in a million years would have thought a year before, if you said to me, you're going to be homeless and addicted to crack, I would have said you were absolutely lunatic. Sorry. It's tough to revisit. For me, I had the disease of more. No matter how much I had, I thought I needed more. I couldn't have one Rolex. I needed 8 Rolexes. I couldn't have a suit. I needed custom suits of my own tailor. My car wasn't nice enough, or my house wasn't big enough. And I was on that loop. And I was on that loop from when I had little, to be honest with you. Even my gambling addiction got taken out of control. And I lost probably $1 million in cash in a 90-day window. One night, 300,000 in 6 hours.
Yeah, it happens fast. In Vegas? Were you in Vegas?
I was at the Wynn then. And then I literally, this is not a lie, I took a plane from Vegas to Macau and lost another 150,000 there. And I flew from Macau to Australia and I lost another 250,000 there. I'm not proud of that.
So there are people listening right now who will make that amount of money in a lifetime.
Yeah.
I cannot relate to the experience of spending, gambling, losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in a night.
I can't either.
When you have Yeah, well, right. You're on the other side of it. But when you're in it, being in Vegas, these are stories that I hear all the time of high rollers, big rollers. I grew up around it, went to college around it, worked in the casino industries, these high rollers that are coming in. For you, never enough, never enough, never enough.
Never enough.
And you have millions of dollars at your fingertips. What are you thinking in those experiences? What are you thinking about life? What are you thinking about what's next?
Honestly, I wasn't. So I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Leaving Las Vegas with Nicolas Cage and Elizabeth Shue. He loses everything, burns down the house, goes to Vegas to drink himself to death. I was essentially on a slow suicide. I didn't say to myself, I'm going to kill myself this way. But I found myself putting myself in suicidal positions. Things that I knew I could never come back from. I basically gave up when I had it all.
When you had it all.
When I finally reached, I worked 25, 30 years to get there, right? And I finally had it and I let it, I just handed it all away. And
why did you do that?
What's that?
Why did you do that? What did you're, so to be clear to the listener, Bob's in sobriety now.
Yeah.
You've recovered now.
I'm
knowing what you know
years,
now.
5 years next month.
Congratulations.
And I am on the other side of it. I've got my mind back. I lost my mind. To your question about what was I thinking? I literally lost my mind. It came down to once I started using substances, even before I ended up homeless, something happened. It triggered something. And I lost all control. I had no control. Forget having control over using or not using substance. That's one issue alone. That's addiction. But I had a mental illness where I literally lost control of my ability to function. And I just knew I was on my way out. And I did whatever I wanted to do. And all of the things that my father was. And I worked so hard to become not my father. I became my father times 100 for a period of about 2 years. And it didn't happen overnight. This stuff doesn't happen overnight, Lisa. This is an incremental deception. It starts with, having drinks at the bar, right? Talking to the bartenders, talking to the people that are there. I became Norm at Cheers, right? And the next thing you know, because I smoke cigars, I didn't have a cigar with me, so I asked for a cigarette. A week later, I was at the Sunoco station across the street buying my first pack of cigarettes in 20 years. I looked at that
Here's
cigarette
the difference.
pack. Listen to this. I looked at that cigarette pack and I said, I can remember to this day, I remember the sounds, the sights, the smells, everything about this. I looked at that cigarette pack and I said, this is the worst decision I'm ever going to make in my life. I had no idea what that meant, but it was my letting go of my values, my character, my integrity, who I wanted to be. That was the beginning of it right there. A pack of cigarettes. Actually, it was a cigarette at the bar.
And you're a multi-millionaire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're a multi-millionaire.
Forbes.
I know.
Yeah, it's very strange. I thought, Lisa, since I achieved these milestones and these accomplishments, by the way, they didn't make me happy. They gave me things I thought I wanted in order to be happy. But I was very unhappy. And I know you hear that all the time. It's almost cliche to say that. How could somebody with money be so unhappy? It just is, because it's not about the money.
What was it about?
It was about me. I wasn't happy because it literally goes all the way back to my father and my upbringing. And the last memory I have of him prior to forgiving him 20 years later was him telling me that I was a no good piece of crap. I was never going to amount to anything in life. and everything I do is half-ass. And I lived and I breathed that statement for decades.
And
I never felt
we're going to prove him wrong.
Yep. I was going to prove him wrong. But at the same time, even when I proved him wrong, I still felt inferior. I went to go visit him. I finally decided to forgive him.
Mm-hmm.
My faith requires it. And I did. And I show up, Mr. CEO of a public company, with all this money and accolade and newspaper articles and you name it, right? And he looks at me and he says, "Son?" I said, "Yeah, Dad." And by the way, he looks like he has cancer. He's living in a $5,000 trailer. Mind you, it's on Linda Lane, and my mom's name is Linda, and he never got over the divorce. Go figure, right? Universe is funny. He says, "You look so fat. I would never have recognized you. I've not seen the man in 20 years. So you can imagine and I knew it. I knew I was going there overweight because I was eating really well around the world and not taking care of myself physically. And so I still dealt with it, even through forgiveness. But I was not able to accomplish in my mind that I was accomplished, no matter. My identity came from success. And the thing about success is that if you have the disease of more, it's a very relative term. Because when you get to the place where you have a net worth of about $20 million, and you're working around people that their net worth is $250 to $500 million, all of a sudden you're not successful. And that game just continues until you become Elon Musk, or even then it continues.
Yeah.
So
can we talk about your peer group?
My peer group? Sure.
Yeah, your peer group, because that one sentence about you have a net worth of $20 million, and then you're around people who have a net worth of 250 or, so much more. What is that life? What are those conversations? What is that lifestyle like?
It really depends on who they are and what they've done to achieve that. So I'll give you two examples. Couple examples. Friend of mine worked 16 years at building a company, sold it for $60 million, made some investments, got divorced, did the party thing, got remarried, but we were friends, and we'd go to Aspen together, skiing with our friends, just friendships. And then there are the peers where you are colleagues, where you're not really involved in their lifestyle. So you don't know their lifestyle per se. You're just involved in sort of corporate with them. The hedge fund, Vices Capital, was started by three founders, and one of them was a very good friend of mine. He was on my board. I gave him an executive position. He was the one grooming me, which, by the way, he was also the one that turned against me instead of supporting me. That's one of the reasons why I lost all my stock. So, he kind of took me under his wing, and he was going to help me get to the next step. The lifestyle it's really the lifestyles of the rich and famous. You stay where you want, you eat where you want, you eat what you want. You never worry about a bill. You don't look at the bill. You just hand the credit card. The bill comes over, you get a big tip. You want to get into a club, you just throw a $100 bill to the bouncer, you get in the club, it doesn't matter. It's monopoly at that point. It's not about the money to these guys. It's about the win.
What's it about?
It's about the win. All it's about is the win. The money is just a byproduct of that. I have another guy that was, he built this company from the ground up, 35 years in business. You may know the name. What's that bird? You see it like not a seagull, pelican products. He started a product out of his garage for himself, and 35 years later sold the company for almost $300 million to a private equity group. sold the business, got bored, started making investments. About 3 years later, I'm sitting at his table. He says, Bob, he says, I feel really poor. I had to get rid of one of the yachts. I had to get rid of one of the jets. I said, what happened? He said, I lost money in the real estate and I lost money in this business. I'm down to probably 90 million and I only have about 40 million liquid. This is the mindset. He was sad. He was depressed. He's like, it took me 35 years to get that money and I gave away most of it. I said, listen, you have plenty. Get rid of the other yacht and the other jet and just sit back and enjoy life. You're like 68 years old,
Yeah.
So it's really not about the money. If it was about the money, he wouldn't have made all his investments. It was really about, he wanted another win. He wanted another in. He wanted to be in the game again. And
Gotcha.
it's not about the money.
When I was driving to the studio, we were talking about just getting ready for the show. For you, my experience of the both sides of the coin of earning money and then losing money, both were just as easy for you. And I don't think that every listener can, and I know they don't because my clients come to me and they don't have the belief that it's easy to make money. They don't. That comes from a lot of places, but for you, how did you? Yeah, where did that come from?
So here's the thing: there's a couple of things. Let me touch on this first, and then I'll finish your question. Part of my problem all my life, I was very successful in business, but I wasn't necessarily successful in my personal finances because I always expended more than my means. But because I found it easy to make money, I would just go make more money to cover what I needed to, but then you have market crashes and then you're screwed. So I've had a couple of those situations, right? But then I just go make more money. I find ways, I find creative ways. I've changed industries 6 times in the past 25 years. I've entered a brand new industry practically every 3 to 5 years and knew nothing about it. And I either ended up owning the company or being a senior executive in the company and selling the company.
How did you do that?
I don't know. I showed up. I worked really hard, and this goes way, way, way back to, I'm talking about from the time of before college. This is what I would always do. I found myself in positions where I didn't know the job. I'll give you an example. I was just telling somebody about this today. I started my career. I was in the automobile business. My great uncle owned a number of car dealerships, and I worked my way up to general sales manager by the age of 22. I was doing really, really well. And then there was a recession. I just said, I don't want to be in this business forever. And so I left and I went back to school, went back to college nights and weekends. And here's what you need to do, right? It's not just showing up, it's putting in the work. I was a bill collector for the day. I did school in the evening, double classes. I went to UPS at 11 p.m. and loaded and unloaded 18-wheelers until 2 a.m. And I started the process all over again at 6 a.m. the next morning because I had a wife and a child and I had to take care of the family and I wanted to do something more and better, right? Well, what comes out of that is I graduate, I get my degree. In
accounting.
What's that?
In accounting.
I won my CPA designation, right? So I decided, this is back in the day when there was a phone book. I picked up the phone book and I went to the accounting section. A to Z, I started calling accounting firms. I'll work for you for free in the evening. I'll work for you for free in the evening. I got down to G, Gallagher Company, and they said, come on in. And they said, we'll hire you, but you're not going to work for free. We'll give you $10 an hour, right? I would have done it for free, guys, just one of my hours. Well, it turns out that the senior partner of that firm, his cousin, after 2 years I had been there, it took me another 8 years part-time to get my CPA designation. His cousin's the HR director at what was then Coopers & Lybrand, which is now PricewaterhouseCoopers. Kid from Methuen with a degree from a local community college does not get into Coopers & Lybrand. That's like getting a degree at Harvard, right? Or Wharton. And so how do I do it? It's funny because I had a very good friend of mine. I grew up since I was 12 years old. And she said to me, Bob, pardon the expression. She said, Bob, you seem to have a horseshoe up your ass. I said, no, I show up. I work hard. I make the effort. I do what it takes. I do whatever it takes. I communicate to people. I let them know I'm here and available. So after I got my designation, I ended up at a Coldwell Banker for the mortgage division. I went in for a junior accountant position because I was brand new, right? Well, I ended up meeting with the CFO. He took a liking to me. I said, he offered me a job. I said, I can't accept that. I was making $100,000 a year bill collections. I can't take $28,000 a year. 90 days later, he calls me, how would you like a controller position? Can you accept $70,000 a year? So now I'm a controller. And if anybody knows anything about accounting, they know that it's a 10-year process to get to controller.
People don't know anything about that shit.
So I can just
People
tell you,
don't
it's a
know.
10-year process. You got to go through the steps, right? Go through the steps. So I walked into a job that I had no idea how to do. I had never done journal entries. I had never done reconciliations. I had never done a month-end financial statement. I had never gone through an audit, but yet now I'm responsible for all that. So what do? I literally worked 7 days a week. I worked 12 hours a day, and that did not include my travel time to go from Haverhill, Massachusetts, take the T into Boston, take the Orange Line to North Station, walk the downtown crossing to get to my job. Back and forth, right? So it's easy to make money. It's what you're willing to sacrifice to get there. Now, so look, some of us, not me, but some of us in the world have a silver spoon. Right? They have the right parents, the right grandparents, the right upbringing, plenty of money. Everything's easier for them, right? They have their own challenges, but everything's easier to get to where I got to than them. So don't mistake it. It's not easy. It's just easy, if that makes sense.
It was hard work for you. That's what I'm hearing you say. And also knowing that you've declared bankruptcy twice. You've created wealth. You haven't held on to wealth, but what most people would consider wealth, you've created more than twice in your life.
Right.
I understand that, and I appreciate that you worked hard to get there.
Yeah,
and with a combination of hard work and the right relationships, you were able to earn. And then there's this yo-yo, which I think is really important to talk about because this is an experience that so many people experience with money. I have it. I don't have it. I have it. I don't have it. I have it. I don't. And you did that not just through bankruptcy, but you've done that. I'm making $100,000. I'm making $30,000. That's how you described it to me.
It's literally what I did. I was 100,000. I went down to 28,000. When I went to PricewaterhouseCoopers, it was Coopers and Lybrand at the time before the merger, I literally went from $100,000 a year job because I was at the coal banker division with my bonus of about 100,000, and I took $28,500 a year plus overtime. And then as soon as I started, they took away the overtime, gave me a bump to 31,000 a year. So 31,000 a year, no overtime, and they work at 80 plus hours a week.
But that was with the premier accounting firm
in the world,
in America.
In the world, we were the largest professional services firm in the world. And I got to be on engagements like Tyco International, which is a $35 billion client, doing secondary market offerings. I was in smaller enterprise software companies, bringing them public, due diligence assignments. I mean, I got to so much experience there. And then, of course, I get the phone call from Tony Robbins to be recruited to go out there. And I said, are you kidding me? The reason I went to college is because I heard on his cassette tapes, Personal Power, take action. And here I was in the 3-tenement apartment I could barely pay $525 a month for, raising a wife and 2 children. And I said, you're absolutely right. That's what I'm going to do. And that's what brought me back to college.
And that was in 95, right?
Now,
what year was that?
College, I started back in 92, 93.
So you got the call from Tony Robbins and you went back to college?
No, I was done. But when I heard his cassette tapes, that's right. I went to college. Right. So I was into self-help and professional development because of my career in car sales and things like that. So I loved Tony. Right. And then that was in 92. I heard that message. Fast forward after college. Right. And then PricewaterhouseCoopers, it was 96, 97. And I got a call from a recruiter, Korn Ferry, for a interim CFO position at Tony Robbins. And I'm like, the Tony Robbins? I said, when do I start? And it was an amazing experience. It was, interestingly enough, he happened to be in Lowell, Massachusetts, which was right where I was born, right down the street from where I lived, for a seminar that same weekend. So I went to go meet him. He was on stage. He's 6'8". He's standing over me on stage. He's like 13 feet tall, right? Big hand, shakes my hand. He says, we're really looking forward to, learning more about you and seeing you come on board or something like that. And I said to him, I hope so. And he said, hope's not in our vocabulary. Hope is not a strategy. And I said, oh my God, I just blew it. I just blew it. And I was the seventh chief financial officer in 3 years because the turnover rate was so high because of how he operated his company. And so that when I left the company, I turned things around so much in a couple of years and had a great team of people. It's like a family. I replaced myself with another CFO when I came to Florida, and he stayed, 14, 15, 16 years. So it's one of my chief accomplishments, to be honest with you.
Definitely something to be proud of. Yeah. And to see the influence that Tony has today. And it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows.
No.
As business, business never goes that way. But so we're going to come back to Tony. I want to reflect on your experience at Price Waterhouse, because all the things that you described, the experience of buying and selling, going public, helping companies go public, learning all the things that you had to learn to do the work that you had to do. This is one of the number one reasons why people are afraid of money, is because you embedded yourself into it. You worked from the bottom up. You got your degree in accounting, and it can be or feel like it is so complicated. And for so many people, they associate 2/3 of Americans, actually 2/3 of people associate money with math, and math is a negative experience for them. And because they're not good at math, they're not going to be good with money. And then they just throw it out the window. I'm never going to be good at it, so why bother?
So look, what I've learned is money's just a tool, right? And the more effort you put into trying to hold on to money, the faster and harder it goes through your fingers. And you don't even know how it happens. I put less emphasis on the money I just keep going back to the money is a byproduct of my effort. And look, some people have all they have, right? I mean, for me right now, I'm just rebuilding. I don't have a lot right now. I will have a lot again because it'll be a byproduct of my efforts again, right? That's starting to happen right now. It's just a cycle for me. I'll just get more, right? But I'll be handling it much different this time. I already have a plan in place. We've already spoken about some of that. So I think that we put too much. I think there's too much fear. Number one, like you said, forget math. Look, you get a paycheck or you have a business and you have a certain amount of money. That's what you have. It's not the money that's the problem. It's the decisions we make around the money. And the decisions are even not the problem. It's how the decisions are being made and why they're being made. They're being made because of the 6 inches right here. And if we don't have this figured out, it doesn't matter if you have $10 in the bank, a negative net worth, or $100 million. It's useless. I look, if you have 100 million, it's going to go a little way to buy dinners and a house and everything else. I get that. That's not what I'm saying. Get what I'm saying. If you have $100 million and you don't have this right, you're going to lose the $100 million. It doesn't matter if it's $10 or $100 million. And it's not just about losing it. It's about, so pre-recovery, what I call my divine disaster, which is what I think my book is going to be called. I've said this to a few people. I think I've even said it to you. In the past, I loved money and I used people. Now I love people and I use the money I have.
Mm-hmm.
It is a small statement, but it's, is a deep, I don't know, to me it is, but it's so powerful if you really understand that you take the fear out of the money, the math, the whack, the this, the that. You have what you have. You got to work with what you have. Then you can fix this, and then you can make decisions as to if you want to get more, how would you do that? I knew how to do that. Sometimes I had to actually take steps back. 2 times I went over from $100,000 a year down to $30,000 a year, 2 times, so that I could go forward. And you know what? I thought that would work out. And it did. You know why? Because I ended up becoming a chief financial officer of an enterprise technology company called Q-Link Technologies. I had 770,000 shares of stock. We were going public at $10 to $12 a share. I was 35 years old, and I thought I did it because that was my goal: get a CPA, become a CFO of a technology company, and go public and retire. I could have very easily done that at that time. Well, it just so happened that we had the dot-com bubble burst. So my 770,000 shares got dwindled down and diluted into 7,700 shares, and we sold the company to Adobe. I got a nice check for $7,700. Great experience, great for the resume. Sold the company to Adobe, but didn't get me very far financially. But, quite frankly, I know for certain that had I gone public in that company and gotten that money, I was so not ready for it up here.
Yep.
And what does that mean? What does that mean, Lisa, right? What does it mean to be ready up here? What's the difference between Elvis Presley and, someone that's alive today? Tony, what's his name? The singer, the Italian guy.
Tony
Bennett, right? Why did Tony Bennett still live and stay successful, right? Whereas Elvis Presley had everything, and lost not only what he had, but his life.
Yeah. It's easy for someone who is not in your shoes, not in Tony Robbins' shoes, not in Elvis's shoes, Beyonce's, Taylor Swift's, to make judgments on what their lives are like. And it is a phenomenon in our culture today to look up to, aspire to be like,
right,
to idolize millionaires and billionaires. Yeah. Why is that, Bob? You have been in those circles.
Well,
why is that?
I was prone and susceptible to it myself, right? I saw that as my way out. I saw that as my identity, right? A lot of these people that are very well-to-do have serious psychological problems. Many of it goes back to their childhood and what they're trying to achieve to get over, right? So again, it goes back to here. It all goes back to here. That's not a commercial for losing your mind so you can go get rich. But, I'll give you an example. The gentleman I told you sold his business for $60 million. He's actually invested in another business and he's now worth $200 million, right? Has everything you could want and everything you could imagine. He's an alcoholic. He can't put down the bottle, and it's all because he's not right here.
Yep.
And
energetically, anxiety and excitement feel the same way in our body.
Pain and pleasure.
Our brain.
There's only a slight difference between the two. Same thing.
Your brain can't tell the difference. And that excitement could be energetically unsustainable. So you have all this money, you have all this everything going on. And if you're not prepared for it and your mindset isn't ready for it energetically, that creates an experience of roller coasters, spinning out of control, numbing, all the same reasons non-millionaires and billionaires drink and do drugs.
There's a statistic that you may not be aware of. It's a study that was done, and it states that entrepreneurs, particularly startup entrepreneurs, have the highest suicide rate of beats police, everything.
Yep.
And so we are on a path to try and create our purpose in life. And we believe our purpose in life is what we do. And therefore our identity is what we do. I believe if your identity is tied into who you are, what you do for a living, you may as well just give up trying. Because when you do get there and you find out that isn't the solution, you end up like me. Homeless, lost everything, literally down to the clothes on my back. In a 5-year journey to find my way back. I died twice through the process. I was brought back to life. I'm a walking miracle. And I'm so grateful for it. And it's interesting. I think I've told you this before. I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy what I went through. And I can't even begin to express that enough. However, I wouldn't give it up for the world, because through that process, my head and my heart, this is right now.
Mm-hmm.
I needed that for some reason to get this right. I have to stay
Mm-hmm.
vigilant because I'm still at my core nature of who I am. But a
Yeah.
transformation took place through that process that allows me to live today a life of peace and joy and contentment and kindness and selflessness that I never lived before, because I was always on the hunt for more to get over this.
Who was that guy? Let's start with, I do want to talk about the Tony Robbins journey, because I think our listeners want, for me, actually, I'm really curious to know what that was like. And we had a conversation before the show that you were sharing a little bit about what was going on behind the scenes with Tony Robbins at that time, because you only outwardly see the success. You only see the success. So starting with Bob at that time, who were you? And then gleaning into access to Tony Robbins, who's pretty much from the outside looking in on this straight up. He's going straight up to success. What was that like?
You know, he was kind of my, I wouldn't call myself a zealot at that time, but I was just in awe of this man. You know, I had been for a long time. So to be working for him was, I mean, I can remember when, I'll back up real quick. So the chief operating officer asked me to come out, and I said, look, it's 3,000 miles away. I'm just some kid from Methuen. You know, I could take a vacation, because they were inviting me out for 7 days to look at houses and check out the area. I said, but, you know, I can't do that to you because I'm not coming. You know, all of our family's here, etc. And her name is Faith Gorski. I'll never forget. She says, Bob, that is exactly why we want you to come. Come take a vacation on us. I said, as long as it's clear, I'm coming for a vacation. I've never been to San Diego, California. I'd never been out of Methuen, right? Or Boston. And I was very young. I was very green. I was really not skilled for the job. I mean, you got to remember, I had a couple of years as a controller that I didn't even know what I was doing until I left. Then I had a couple of years at PricewaterhouseCoopers where I was just figuring things out as I went. And then I'm in San Diego as interim chief financial officer with 3 other Tatum CFOs contracting there because the place was such a mess. And I'm supposed to figure out how to fix it, right? I was 29
What
years.
was such a mess about it?
So Tony is a very entrepreneurial guy. He's always buying a company or integrating something. The seminar and publishing business is very complicated, very, very complicated. So, for example, we had to take $100,000 cash with us to an event to give out to the union guys. No accounting for it before I got there.
Okay.
None. Mary would just go to the bank, one of his right hands, and he gave her access to go get money. She got the money, and who knows if she gave it to anybody? I have no idea, right? So the place was just a zoo. And, you know, you got to remember, this is back in the day before technology, right? So I would give you an example. Yeah. We would do an event. We would take over the Portland Trailblazers Stadium. The accounting team would take over the locker room, right? We would have Mary Kay ladies, 200 Mary Kay ladies volunteering, setting up the inventory. The inventory were books and tapes for all the speakers. And they would take cash, check, or charge at those places and then bring the money to us without any point of sale, anything. It was literally cash, check, or the old charge, right? And we would do $2 million in sales on that day, counting it in the Portland Trailblazers locker room. From a accountant's perspective, it's your worst nightmare, right? So no CFO in their right mind that was actually of any good would work there long. They're like, I'm not exposing myself to this, but I was 29. I didn't know any better. Right? I walked into the director of HR's office, sat down, was filling out the paperwork, and under the door came an envelope with keys with a letter. And it was a letter from the payroll department, my first day of employment. Now, keep in mind, 350 salespeople, 16 different Excel spreadsheets for commissions that never write. Payroll's coming up next Friday. And it was a letter that said, we quit. We're not working for another new CFO, especially not one from Boston. Word for word. verbatim. And the keys were there. And the whole payroll department left. I had a corporate office I could see from my window, and I didn't spend a minute there other than to shower for 90 days. But again, what did I do to overcome that? I worked my tail off. I communicated with every corporate executive. I pulled them all together. I said, this is our predicament. And before you knew it, I was a major operator to the company. And Tony was doing two things at the time. Dreamlife.com. He brought in a couple of Harvard guys to bring it public, and I was going to get some equity in that. That didn't happen because of the .com situation. And Robbins Results Partnership, which is his coaching program. We created the beginning of that. There was no coaching program when I got there. And so that's the most successful part of this business now, is the coaching.
Yeah.
And so he was tired. This is a funny story. This will give you an example of to answer your question. He was exhausted with us putting together a plan because he was really upset actually one day because we didn't launch it yet, but we didn't launch it yet because we didn't have coaches yet. Right. So we had the plan, but we didn't have the coaches yet. They were all coming on board. And he was doing a Unleash the Power Within event. We were there, of course. And he gets up on the stage and says, and if you want to sign up for the coaching program, it's only $199 a month. And you go out to the back room, and we're all like, what coaching program? Yeah, that's how he does it. So that's the answer to your question, right? So he makes things happen, even if it's not ready to happen. And that creates chaos sometimes.
Yeah.
So look, what Tony is what you see. There is no two Tonys. What you see is what you get. That's how he is. That's how he lives his life. He's not always on, but he's always Tony. TR actually.
I think that's what do you call him? TR?
TR. Yeah. That's what his friends and family call him TR.
Okay. So you think today, this is 30 years later.
Yeah.
And you see this successful empire he's created. And to hear that in those growing years, scaling years, and I've seen this happen over and over in businesses. You've seen this happen over and over in businesses. It can be chaos. And just because you make a lot of money doesn't mean that you have it all together.
No, let me give you another example. We had a $20 rainy day fund. And Tony's all about the mission of increasing the quality of people's lives. He really, truly is. And so the events were not paying off. He was losing money every single event. And we're trying to figure out how and why, right? It was just chaos. But we went through that $20 million in about my first 6 months. It was gone. And I didn't see a checkbook anywhere else for any more money. Now, of course, there was more money, but it was his, right?
Right.
He lost 2-3 million cash every event. It was like, he didn't care because that was the funnel to get more people in later. That'll be profitable later and will increase the quality of people's lives while we're here. I'll make more. He had the same thing I have. We'll make more money. Don't worry.
That's right.
And he's done that. And some of that takes not only hard work and brute force and perseverance and determination and all those things, but it also takes a bit of luck along the way.
And it sounds like Bob in the background, keeping everybody together, keeping all the money together, because for so many people, the reason they don't become entrepreneurs, the reason that they don't go big for their dream, the reason they don't take the risk is because the thought of bleeding that kind of money, and we're not talking about $20,000. We're not talking about $200,000. We're talking about $2 or $3 million. And that you have to be a certain kind of person to stomach that kind of loss.
I don't think anybody is the right person to stomach that loss. I don't think anybody can stomach it, but they do it because they have a belief and they have a dream. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. You end up flipping burgers at McDonald's until you find your dream again. Look, it's a cliche. It's simple to say, but it's so true. No risk, no reward. If you don't risk, you're not going to get the reward. You're going to be stuck with the same thing you have now, right? I risked a lot every single time. And I risked not just on my own, I risked with a family. That wasn't really the smartest thing to do, but I'm very, if you can't tell, I'm very self-confident in my ability to figure it out. Right. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work, I'll find something else. I'll do something else. I'll get there.
Yep.
Somehow I'll get there. So again, it comes to here. I have a belief, the old saying, fake it till you make it. I needed to do that because I didn't have the belief. I was a kid from Methuen. I found myself at PricewaterhouseCoopers at one post office square in Boston, Massachusetts, at the top 50 firm of the entire organization globally, saying to myself, what am I doing here? I felt like a fraud. I had imposter syndrome. I had imposter syndrome all my life until I would say when I bought the mortgage company and I started to see success, which came after the sale of Adobe. You want to talk about a frightening situation. I was doing mortgages nights and weekends while I was a CFO because I knew my CFO gig was coming due, but I was making like $12,500 a month as a CFO plus bonus, right? Stock options.
Yep.
I was making $10,000 a week, writing loans part-time. I said, this is a business I want to get into. Well, my buddy had that business, and he decided one day to have a mental breakdown, nervous breakdown. And he called me on a Sunday after I opened up a branch for his company and said, I'm shutting the place down. I said, oh, no, you're not. I said, I'm an M&A guy. Give me 3 days to figure it out. We ended up at Denny's with his partner on the back of a napkin. We figured out how I could buy the business. I had no money. I was raising a family of 4 kids, and I'm always overextended.
What do you mean you had no money?
At that time, I had no money. I was making, remember,
$2.
Well, think about it this way. I was at Pricewaterhouse. I just left I was making $125,000 a year plus bonus, right? And I just moved. I was getting on my feet. I just bought a home. I basically had maybe a couple $1,000 in the bank, right? I had no retirement plan because up to that point, I was going, 1 step forward, 3 steps back financially. So I finally got this gig with Adobe, and I thought I was going to retire, and I get a $7,700 check, right? And the mortgage is due. And so I literally had no money. And so there was $80,000 in the bank, and a lot of lease obligations, some corporate debt. And the company was burning about $200,000 a month, maybe a little bit more. And I said, here's the deal. You're going to leave the money in the bank. I'm going to take over all the debt. You're going to give me all the stock and walk away. And I will make sure the employees get paid next pay period. And we'll see what happens from there. I had no idea if I could pull that off, but I had a belief. I believed if anybody could do it, I could do it. And if not, I'll try something else. See, that's a big thing too. People fear. I'll give you an example. When I moved to California, my sister-in-law said, well, what happens if it doesn't work out? Because people from Methuen, Massachusetts just don't go beyond Methuen, Massachusetts. I was already out there because I worked in downtown Boston, And so I said, well, guess what, Michelle? God rest her soul, she just passed. I said, we'll move back. We need to be less fearful and more creative.
I hear that, and I agree. I hear that, and I agree. And in my small world, I went through an experience of, in my 37 years, losing everything. I don't want to do that again.
No, nobody wants to do that again.
I don't want to do that again. And that for me has been a real struggle of how to play big, how to risk it all, how to go for it. And I want to stay married. And I want to have money in my retirement. And that, I think, is a struggle that so many people face. And thank you for sharing, and we're not done, but thank you for sharing everything so far that you've shared, because you've gone for it and you've lost it. And people are going, I don't want to do that. Why would I do that? Why would I risk my marriage? Why would I risk all these things for you? What do you know now?
So 2 things. Number 1, I would never do it again.
Yeah.
And not because I'm not capable of it or I don't think I could do it again. It's because it comes down to, what are you willing to sacrifice? I believe anybody could be a billionaire. Literally, I believe that. I don't believe everybody believes they believe it, but I believe they could if they believed it. It's, what do you have to sacrifice to be the billionaire? And
what are the sacrifices billionaires make?
What's that?
What are the sacrifices? Because I think I'm thinking like, well, if you have $1 billion, what sacrifices are you making?
Well, to get to the billion, you sacrifice everything. You sacrifice your marriage, you sacrifice your kids. But more importantly, or equally as important, I guess, you sacrifice your character, you sacrifice your integrity. There are very few people that are very wealthy that are full of integrity, full of character, full of honesty. I hate to say that, but it's true. That's my experience. My experience is when people have a lot, it's not they did anything criminally. It's not that they got over on someone, but it's like being a politician. Are there good politicians? I would argue that there are none. And I'll tell you, I experienced it. I was asked to run for the representatives when I had my mortgage company because I was launching a chamber of commerce. And I got involved just at the chamber of commerce level, at the board level. And what I saw there and at the House of Representatives, how dirty it was, I said, I'm going nowhere near this. I believe there are certain things in life that you can have if you want it, but you have to decide whether you're willing to accept the consequences of it. You don't have to go big and risk it all. In my opinion, I wouldn't recommend that for you. But you can make a plan to say, this is what I'd like. What would it take? What do I have to risk? What do I have to sacrifice? And am I willing to do that? If not, pull it back a little until you get to the point where you've matched who you are and who you want to be with what that is. Because, Lisa, it doesn't matter if you make $100,000 a year. The difference between $100,000 and $500,000 is nothing in lifestyle. Nothing. Sure, $100,000 a year to $1 million, it's a lifestyle. $1 million to $2 million is no lifestyle difference. None. I mean, it's not until you get to 10 million really before you have some sort of lifestyle difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would encourage your listeners to not worry about how much and how big, but worry about who do they want to be, because that person may just want to be a stay-at-home dad with a part-time business while mom's a teacher. And that's a happy life. We get so caught up in this world about having more and having things and being a billionaire. Who cares about all that stuff? If you got people that love you and you have enough to take care of you financially, enough to maybe go on that extra vacation, right? Work towards that. Don't be working towards becoming a multi-billionaire. If you happen to want to put in a lot of effort and a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice to get there, and maybe you're in a position to do so, go for it. Set the target and go for it.
I think you bring up a really good point. And I was cited or quoted, however you call it, in an article about Gen Z and Gen Z's obsession with wealth. And how Gen Z is chasing wealth and why that is. And I think it's because we've seen wealth more than we've ever seen it before, because before social media, it wasn't that accessible to people.
Yeah.
It was behind guarded gates.
Wealthy. And now they're starting to believe maybe I could, if I just get this channel to 1 million followers and YouTube to, that type of thing. And some are doing it, and that's great. Good for them. I have no problem with anybody making a lot of money. I have no problem with people that don't make a lot of money. I have a target for me. I know where my priorities are now. I know what's important now. The things that are priceless and eternal. We are here for such a short time, Lisa. And anybody that's listening to this that's 25 years old or younger, or 35 or younger, or 45 and younger, we might not get tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
And I do not want to be on my deathbed, looking back, not having put in the time and the effort and the energy into the loved ones and the people in my circle, all because I wanted a better car or a bigger house. It's meaningless. The Bible has a whole book on it called Ecclesiastes. It's meaningless, meaningless, meaningless.
Yeah.
Now, is it bad to go stay in Bali at a Four Seasons? It's a lot of fun, don't get me wrong. I love the finer things in life, but I'm not chasing that anymore. If I happen to do really well because I fall into something because I work hard, great. But I really don't care either way anymore. My head is right now. It's funny now that my head's right, I don't care.
The Bob that was chasing the numbers. Yeah. I said this before on other podcasts and in other things that I have going on YouTube, but I believe at my core that when you just make the numbers the most important thing, you're losing in life.
Out of the gate.
Right.
It's why I said what I said, which is I now love people and use money. The money that I use is the byproduct of what I do. And what I do is a byproduct of what I want to be and who I want to be and what I'm willing to sacrifice. And, you know, I just think, you know, you talk about the Gen Z is a great example. This world, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, is very distorted right now, very deceived right now, more than ever, I think, because of our ability to communicate, right? Which is a boon and a bane. Anything good can be used for bad. And
Yep.
I think it's sad because I see a whole generation who, by the way, are going to teach the next generation, be taught by the people that are already screwed up and deceived. Not to say for Gen Z screwed up and deceived. That don't mix my words. I'm just saying that idea, the ideology that you're starting to see from that generation, right? We had our own issues, so we're all screwed up.
We're all screwed up.
Yeah. I'm concerned. I don't know that I would want to bring a child into this world, to be honest with you. I think it's that problematic. We're on a trajectory, a hockey stick trajectory that is only continuing to what's the term? Well, I can't think of the term right now.
Accelerate, climb.
No.
Multiply.
I'll figure it out and tell you later.
Compound.
It starts with a P. Speaking of compound, I got to share this because I knew about this when I was in my early 20s. And anybody that's listening, it doesn't matter. You have to be in your early 20s. The sooner, the better. The one lesson that I'd like to share, and many people might already know this, but they should look into it, go to the internet and get a calculator on the power of compounding interest.
Yep.
I'll give you a stat just as an example. And I only wish I did this, but I didn't because I just didn't have enough money to do it along the way. I always said I was going to do it. I probably did have enough money, but I just spent it on other things.
Yeah, you did.
You know?
Yeah, you did. I love you, Bob, but yeah, you did.
Well, look, I started a business at 22 and I put all the money I had into that and it wasn't as successful as I would have thought. So I lost all that and started over, you know? So anyway, I'm not going to.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
If, and I don't know the exact numbers, but what I remember seeing, and I did the math on this with the calculator. This is back when Intuit was just coming out, I think 1993 or something like that. And they had these cool tools to do this. If you put away at the age of 22, $100 a month until you're 30 and stop and let it sit in an S&P index fund for the next 30 years. And you start and take another person and they start putting away $100 a month at the age of 30 and they put it away for the next 35 years. You would think that person, the second person, would have more money because they're putting away $100 a month for 35 years. The first person only did that for 8 years. But because they did it 8 years sooner, even stopping 8 years later, they have more money than the person that put away money at 30 years old for the next 35 years at the same time.
Yep.
Everybody. This is what I don't understand why we don't teach this in school from kindergarten. Every person in America can be a millionaire, a multi-millionaire, if they start putting away money starting in their high school job. At 16 years old, you put away $50 a month. Do the math. It will blow you away, the amount of money every single person, forget Social Security, forget how much you do anywhere else, just put $50 away for the rest of your life, or $100, whatever the number is. I can't remember the exact number. It comes to like over $1 million.
So why don't people do that? Because, right? And these are conversations I have with clients all day long because they get that. And we teach that in finance as a financial advisor. And they're like, yeah, that makes total sense. So why don't people do it?
So first of all, it's a belief thing. People, you could do the internet calculator in front of them and they'll go, yeah, I'm not really sure about that.
Yep.
They don't believe it. They don't believe it's for them because honestly, if we're true to ourselves, most people don't have a millionaire mindset. So they don't believe that if they do that, even though it says it'll do it, it's just numbers, you know, there's no secret sauce here. The earlier you start, the less you have to put in order to become a millionaire. Everyone can retire a millionaire if you start at 16 years old. Mm-hmm. A small amount of money. So why don't they do it consistently? Because people love things and they don't care about saving. They don't have we live in such a short-term, instant mindset that they can't imagine 35 years from now. But 35 years is going to come fast. I'm turning 56 next month. I can't even believe that. Like, I'm 6 years away from Social Security. I'm actually going to get some, I think. That's crazy. I feel like I'm 25. Mm-hmm. It just blows like that. It's Tony Robbins. It felt like yesterday we're sitting here talking about it. You said, 30 years ago. 30 years ago? I've got a 35-year-old daughter. Like, this is insane. She was 8 yesterday, you know?
Yeah.
So it goes fast. It goes fast. And now for me, I have to put away a lot in order to ensure that I have something, right? So, anyway, I don't know how I got from that tangent. I just wanted to talk about the power of compounding interest.
It's so important. It's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Mm-hmm. And if I swing back around to mindset, I truly believe this, having done my own personal development work, having gone through facing my own demons and rehabilitating myself, my mindset, my life, my health, everything, is that we have these soul contracts.
Oh, wow.
And that we come into this world needing to, in this lifetime, learn what it is that we need to learn. And I love that. I love that you're going to write a book, because you have had to, even though you knew better.
Yeah.
And that's why I was so excited for you to reach out and say, I want to share my story, because you know the numbers. And I know when I first met you and I work with business owners, I was intimidated. I was like, man, he knows a lot.
Done one or two things.
He knows way more than I do.
And I remember there are people that know way more than me. It's all relative.
Yeah, I know. But you looked at me and you go, you're really smart. And I was like, I know I'm smart. Anyway, I had to go on my journey to learn what I had to learn in life to be where I am right now. And I still have such a learning curve ahead of me in business and in wealth building, all the things. And even though you knew better, even though you knew the numbers, even though you had a degree in accounting, even though you had taken companies to success in your life financially, on the outside looking into success, you had lessons that you had to learn. What were those lessons?
So you have to remember, going all the way back to 22, I was playing catch up. And I got engaged and married so young and had children so young and going to college with children. I was always in catch up mode. One of the lessons I've learned through this process is, it's really the biggest lesson. And I've shared this already, but if I don't know who I am outside of money, if I don't know and not only know who I am, but actually be who I am and who I want to be, until I get that, none of it matters. It will not accumulate. It will not aggregate. It will flow through my fingers faster than sand. And until I have a new relationship with money, see, my relationship with money was get more money, get more things. Get more money, be happy. Get more money, feel successful. Those three.
Was it a high for you?
What's that?
Was it a high for you? More money?
No, it was more about the identity. The high was always in the win. So walking into a situation, I became kind of known as a turnaround expert, because people would call me and say, this thing's falling apart. Can you come help? And somehow I just became known for that, right? So the mortgage company was that situation. Same thing with the Cueling Technologies. I needed to do 3 years financials in 3 weeks for the investors. And they, as seen on TV, started as 14 subsidiaries within a holding company, all burning $2 to $3 million a month, and all broken. 2, I had to have the FBI in to do a accounting surveillance on. The thing was a nightmare, $90 million in lawsuits. So everything I've done is kind of a turnaround. That's my high. the high for me is walking into something broken, fixing it, and turning it into something of value. The money's a byproduct of that. I knew that I would get more money if I did that, right? So it was kind of like a hand in hand for me.
Isn't that what you ended up doing in your own life?
What's that?
Breaking down and fixing it.
Yeah.
Breaking down and fixing it.
I told you were smart. Look, I didn't pick up that pack of cigarettes and say, I'm going to break down. I want to break down. Let me smoke, which led to. But subconsciously, right? Because I wasn't right here. When I was voted off the board and I was asked to resign by what I thought was one of my best friends, the one I told you about, he had not voted against me, which I understand why he did now. It was the right thing to do, to be honest with you, because of the place I was in. I was already starting to get bad. So I don't really fault him for it per se. I understand. He protected himself, but I was subconsciously breaking down prior to even doing anything illegal, so to speak, right? Taking any substances or whatnot. I was in a state of, okay, I got here and it didn't achieve what I thought it was going to achieve. What now? And then on top of it, this thing I took in 6 years ago was going into bankruptcy, and I built it all the way up to acquire As Seen on TV. And all that work, forget the money, all that work I did, and they took my baby away. When they took my baby away, which was my identity, I didn't have anything left. I was already divorced. My kids were already grown up, and now my baby was taken away. So because I was not grounded in who I was and who I wanted to be, on top of that, I was really starting to make some really poor character integrity decisions. That was the final straw for me. That I lost it. I literally lost it. And because I was using substances from a party perspective at that time, if you want to call it that, I fueled that, and it literally I became leaving Las Vegas. I'll never forget it. Here's what happened. November 28th, 2014. I was called to I think it was November 28th. It's Thanksgiving. I was called to an emergency investor meeting. And this is before the board vote. And to make a very long story short, they said, look, Bob, we think you're the best salesman in the world. You got $12,500,000 of our money invested in this thing. If you weren't a good salesman, you wouldn't have done that. But we don't think you're the right guy for the CEO role. Now, keep in mind, the only reason they're a company today, 6 years later, is because of what I did, right? So I've been the right guy all along, right? But he and I had kind of this issue. He was the president of one of the funds. And anyway, long story short, I left that meeting. I was late for my mom's Thanksgiving dinner at her house. And it was only, interestingly enough, so weird. This investor retired from SSC Capital and moved to Lakewood Ranch, 4 miles from my mother. So I was 2 miles into the drive, and I had a nervous breakdown. I didn't know it at the time. I had no idea what it was. All I knew is I started shaking uncontrollably and crying. I had to pull over. And I called the other board members, who were my two friends, and said, I need to resign. I can't do this job. And I lost it. I just lost it. I was white as a ghost. I got to my mom's. I don't know how I got there. Somehow I ate some food. I had a nervous breakdown. I didn't know it. What should have happened is people should have brought me to the hospital, but they just thought Bob's capable. He'll take care of himself, but I literally broke. That was the day I broke. And from that moment forward until December 31st, I went on a drug and gambling binge. December 31st, I was going to kill myself. I was across the street from the casino in Tampa, and I texted a former girlfriend I hadn't talked to in a year, just to say I'm sorry for the way I treated her. Why her? Why then? What? Makes no sense to me. And she said, "What are you doing? Where are you?" And I kid you not, I was gonna go off the Skyway Bridge. This was December 31st, 2014. And this woman, who I didn't treat well, really, got rid of her New Year's Eve date, sent him home, came and picked me up, brought me to the New Year's Eve party where everyone hated me because they knew who I was. This guy that didn't treat their friend well. It was awful. She says, you're going to see the New Year ring in with me. And you're going to be better tomorrow. And she nurtured me all night long. She just loved on me and listened to me and watched me cry and listened to me cry. And we went to brunch the next morning, New Year's Day. And she drove me from Tampa to my mom's in Sarasota. Stayed there for half a day with, she literally saved my life. Unfortunately, I'd like to say that's where the recovery began.
Yeah.
But that's only where it got progressively worse after that, because I decided to just completely lose it. So if you're not right here, money doesn't matter, and it really boils down to once you start lowering your guard, it's a slippery slope. And maybe someone's bottom won't be as bad as mine. I mean, I literally had to be revived twice over that 5-year period. Mm-hmm. I was out. I was dead and gone twice.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a different bottom. Some don't come back. Some is very high bottom. And that's not necessarily good either. That's almost as bad as a low bottom because you learn nothing from it. There's no transformation. And they repeat the same mistakes again. So I'm grateful.
So Bob, for it. Yeah, you're on crack.
Yeah.
You're homeless. You've sent pictures to me of that, Bob. What was the turnaround for you? When did you decide that you were going to turn it around?
So there are a couple of key moments. I was in Daytona Beach, in and out of a sober living home there, had some peers, homeless, dependent, trying to get better. I went to church in Ormond Beach and reacquainted myself with God. Had a real moment. I'll come back to that at the end of this because it's important. I was a good friend of mine who worked for me at my mortgage company bought me a bus pass to get back to Sarasota, and I landed at the Salvation Army. And if you know anything about the Salvation Army, it's sort of the last stop. It's the last stop. You don't want to be staying at the Salvation Army in a program. You may as well be a chick.
Yeah.
But I had nowhere else to go. And I walked into the Salvation Army in Sarasota. And fortunately, they have a lot of funds given to them in grants. So it's a nice one if you want to call it that. And I walked in the door, and they have this thing, it's called the bubble, where people work within, behind the glass. And I looked up, and it said, the Center of Hope. I hadn't thought about hope. The word hope didn't exist in my mind for 4 years at that point. I lost the sense of hope. I lost my mind. I had it was death and destruction and devastation is all it was. And I walked up to the bubble, and this woman, her name was Mary. I just moved. I gave her some of my furniture. She's an earth angel. She looked up at me, and you got to remember, when you're homeless and like that, you're invisible. People run, they walk on the other side of the street. Nobody pays attention to you. So you feel like you're in an invisible bubble. And she smiled. She said, "Hi, how can I help you?" And the smile, just the smile, and the hello and the welcome was like, oh my gosh, I'm in the right place. And I looked back up and I saw hope again. And I said, okay, maybe there's some hope. Now I stayed in the program and I graduated from the program, but I relapsed. But that's where I got the basis, right? So fast forward 2 years and I'm in jail for missing a court date, because that's what you do when you're an addict.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't do anything bad. I just missed a court date by 2 hours, and the judge didn't accept my written letter, and he put a warrant out for my arrest. So here I am in a place I've never been. Now you got to remember, 5 years ago, I'm a multi-millionaire, chairman, CEO of a public company, and now I'm sitting in jail. Like, this is mind blowing, right? I mean, you can't make
Yeah.
this up. And here's the crazy part. So I'm in booking and I'm sitting down. I'm in the same clothes I've had for 7 days, literally. And that's all I have is these clothes. That's it. Nothing else. I was dirty, smelly. I was 140 pounds, soaking wet. Just you saw the pictures. And that was when I was better than this time. That was better, believe it or not. So I'm sitting there, and there's a person that's supposed to come when you have a small misdemeanor to see if you're fit for a program for people that are in addiction or homelessness or whatever. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this really pretty girl coming down the hall. And I look over, and I kid you not, it was my daughter. She was coming to give the interview. She didn't know it was me, and I didn't know she worked there. It was my mini me, the one that looked up to me, that wanted to be the CEO of my mortgage company that I was going to give to her. I hadn't seen her in 5 years because my family disowned me through this process. For a fraction of a second, she smiled and was happy to see me. And I mean, I was just like, oh my gosh, what are you doing here? Why are you in jail? You know? Immediately, that fraction of a second later, this look of disappointment that you never, ever, ever want to see on anybody's face. It was something is burned in my brain. I ended up in the holding cell until I was going to get sent to general population until my bond or whatever was going to happen. She came around. I said, honey, I need help. She says, are you ready for help? I said, I'm so ready. She says, I'll support you if you'll take my help. She says, I just happen to be working for the judge that handles addiction and that type of thing. Drug court. She works for the judge for drug court. Go figure. You know, coincidental. There's no coincidence, right?
No.
I'm in my cell. My daughter's talking to me and she's offering this offer. I said, I'll take it. I'm the first person that entered the program and I'm the first person to graduate from the program. Why did I get recovery this time? Because addiction in any form, substance, mental, emotional, whatever it is, thrives when there's not love and what's the word I'm trying to think of? But it's just support. Not that that means you enable. I'm not talking about enablement. I'm just talking about it thrives when you don't have it. When you don't have it, nobody cares. You don't care. And you just do worse things to yourself. Finally, somebody cared. My daughter cared. So I was going to make it my mission to make sure I didn't relapse this time.
Mm. That was your turning point.
That was a major turning point right there. And that was March 30th, 2019. I'll never forget it. I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget it.
You said you were going to come back to something about church.
Yeah.
Or God.
So when I went to church, and I don't know if I sent you the picture, I'll send it to you later.
No.
I was there with 3 other homeless people that I met homeless, right? One lady, she was like an 80-year-old mute that didn't talk to anybody and was very standoffish because you can imagine you're 80 years old practically and you're living. I met her as I got to Daytona Beach. She was laying on the sidewalk. I had a thing of wings that I picked up from Walmart. I think I probably stole them. I don't know how I got them. And I gave them to her. And so she became kind of friendly to me. Another guy was this alcoholic that's been an alcoholic for a long time, but great guy. Like another young kid was an alcoholic and an addict. And anyway, so there's the 4 of us at church, but we're homeless. And we went to the homeless church portion of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got food, we got Q-tips, we got the things that you need. This just sounds strange telling the story like it's about me. It's just so weird. It's like a movie, but it's real. Anyway, I left that church. It was great service. I found God again. And I said to myself, I'm going to come back. And I told the pastor and the pastor's wife in the first timers line, I'm going to come back here healthy, clean and sober. This is the beginning of my recovery. And it really was. And so I had been in recovery now for a while, years. I've been trying to get back there. Okay. And it just didn't work out. It's Ormond Beach. It's across the state. Well, to make a long story short, I'm now engaged and I decide I'm going to go to do some prison ministry. One of the guys I knew in addiction got 12 years. So he's in Dade County Prison. So I was going to go make a visit and do some prison ministry there. She came with me and I said, since we're on this side of the coast, I've been wanting to go to that church now that I'm healthy and recovered and you're with me. This could be really awesome. Would you come? And she said, sure. So we drove 5 hours. Along the way, about an hour into the trip, we're trying to decide where to get a hotel, right? So there's probably 300 hotels in Daytona Beach and Ormond Beach.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked one. I didn't think anything of it. And we're driving. We get there. I said, this looks really familiar. This looks really familiar. And I kid you not, Lisa, the hotel I picked was across the street from the church. Can't make it up. I had no idea. I was on hotels.com, right? Anyway, we go to church, amazing service. I come out to the line again to see the pastor and his wife. I said, you don't remember me, but 7 years ago, I said I was going to come back to this church healthy and recovered. Here's my fiance. Life is amazing. You guys took care of me, gave me food, gave me clothing. Thank you so much. She goes, wait 1 minute. And she runs off and she goes and gets the pastor of the VIP ministry and they feed and clothe hundreds of people every Sunday. Hundreds. They bust them in.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing church. And so she comes, the pastor comes back with her with a camera crew. And wouldn't you know it? She says, everything you just told me, say it now on camera. And so I did. I shared my testimony. Yeah. And they said, that was awesome. We are going to play it in the church. We're going to play it in the VIP ministry. I have no idea whose life that's going to change, but I'm telling you right now, that was all orchestrated by God, in my opinion. Okay. I don't know anybody's beliefs, but that's mine. So, here's why that's special. I didn't have an ending to the book. That was my closure to the story. I no longer live in the story. It was huge for me. I left there and the book is, and we lived happily ever after, transformed into a new human that understands and cares about the things that matter. And I will no longer be chasing money or happiness ever again. And that part of my life is over. And check. Mm-hmm. So now I've got an ending to the book. So now I can write the book.
Good for you. Awesome. I can't wait to read it. And you said something so powerful right there, is that you're no longer in the story.
Yes.
With addiction, with money, when anything spins out of control, it's the story that we're telling ourselves that perpetuates it. And we have to have the courage, and I'm speaking to you, the listener, right here, right now. You have to have the courage to stop buying your own bullshit and to stop listening to the story, whatever it is, that is not helping you. It's hurting you. And the story is, I'm not good enough. Mm-hmm. The story is, I'm not worthy. The story is, no one cares. Or I need more. Whatever that's.
My dad was my story, right?
Yep.
All my life. I replayed that story in my head over and over. And look, I made the decisions to do what I did. I just didn't know. There's some people that could go and do what I did, and they don't have the DNA of an addict. So they might have gotten past it, right? I'm glad I had it. I don't tell myself this. My story's a new story now.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, so going back to the soul contract, I think this is a great way to finish, to tie the episode up, is that we have these lessons that only we need to learn for ourselves in life.
Right.
And this was your journey. Yeah. These were your learnings. This has been your path. And living this next chapter of your life, what's possible for you now? And for the listener too, your the ending of your story can just as easily be the beginning.
Yeah.
And that whether you're facing bankruptcy, whether you've blown through your life savings, whether you are afraid to start the company that you're wanting to start, dreaming about starting, or you're just in a mess and it feels like you're in a mess, that doesn't have to be your forever. What's possible for you now, Bob?
So I live in the present now. I do not focus on tomorrow or worry about yesterday. And what's possible for me is to become a better person every day, to be a person of character, of integrity, of service, of value, of love, of peace and kindness and selflessness. All the things I never was and thought I was, right? Oh, good old narcissistic, arrogant, egotistical Bob. But I just want to be a good human, and I want to enjoy what I do every day. And I want to make a difference in whatever that means. For example, I decided just yesterday, I signed up for a volunteer program at a food bank. I'm going to do something at the food bank, and that's not to say not everything has to be about that. But for me, those are the things that matter now. I want to do something. I want to make a difference. I don't care about, I care about taking care of my family financially, and I'm going to make the right decisions now. Okay. For example, having my fiance involved in the finances to the point where she is majority owner of it and I participate because I'm proven to not be the best personally in my finances. I'm great corporately, right? Go figure.
That is very common. That is very common.
I'm going to give her the purse strings, and I'm going to put the money in there, and she's going to allocate me some money, and I'm good with
good for her.
So, it's just how I make decisions now. That I'm going to be living my life by.
I love that.
So it's really that for me. I'm just trying to keep it simple, Lisa.
Yep.
I really am just trying to keep it simple. I want a good gig. I want to enjoy life. I want to love on people. I want to have the finances to be comfortable and stable, and to be building towards retirement. Other than that, anything's bonus.
Yeah, everything a bonus.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to end the show. For those of you who are listening today, I hope that listening to Bob's story, being a part of this conversation, that you've learned something. You've learned something about yourself, something that you can take away from this conversation that will help you live your life to the fullest, to the best, and in the most meaningful way. Bob, your story is so important. And I am leaving this conversation feeling hopeful. I told you this before the call. My ex-husband is sober 10 months and it's his birthday today. And that's a celebration.
Sure is.
And that rock bottom doesn't look like and feel like everything are the same. It doesn't look like and feel like the same for everyone. I'm grateful for you to share your story. And thank you for being here today. What's one thing you want to leave with our listeners today?
Stop believing everything everyone told you. Stop believing what you've told you. Decide what you'd like that matches who you are, and start today, one step at a time. A marathon wasn't finished in a stride. Don't worry about how you're going to get there. Just believe something new and good about yourself, because you deserve it.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bob.
You're awesome, Lisa.